How's it going, everybody? Tech Tart Ted. It is the 24th day of August. How's it going, folks? So today I want to talk about how fucked up things are and how we are throwing everything away and we're about to build new on the ashes of the past. Now, imagine my shock and almost horror today when I'm listening to The Dive with Jackson Hinkle. And I've only actually discovered Jackson Hinkle since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. I may have seen him once or twice. I was under the assumption that Jackson Hinkle was a libertarian because there are certain things he says that don't match up with me. You know, I'm able to disagree with people. I'm able to have differing ideas. But imagine my shock and horror when he described himself as a patriotic socialist. And I had to examine myself because I am very much anti-socialist. I'm antisocial and anti-socialist, for that matter. Anti-communist to almost to a religious status of being anti-communist and anti-socialist. So it was relatively shocking that I agree with somebody who self-describes as a socialist. And a lot of this came because other socialists were calling out Jackson Hinkle as being a fascist, which, I mean, this is a lovely word we like to throw around, and most socialists don't understand that they are also fascist. That they shut down any discussion. They shut down, how would we say? They shut down any dissent. They don't allow any opposing views, which is typically the American left today. So I think it's really interesting that when me, who is definitely an anti-socialist, anti-communist, and someone who describes themselves as a socialist agree on anything. I think that needs to show you just how much trouble we're in. And everybody's willing to throw what they have away on a gamble. And I'll speak to that. The media and a lot of these tech companies and a lot of these providers for platforms for social media, they're willing to toss everything away on the woke agenda. I don't watch regular TV. There's no value in it. There's no entertainment. It's all indoctrination. It has been for quite some time. So I tend to go through streaming services, pick and choose what I want. If it's not entertaining, I don't subscribe. A lot of the best stuff that I find on the internet as far as streaming is free content. But you've got people like YouTube. YouTube has made it a point to punish anyone who does not toe the woke agenda or the Ukraine agenda. And they punish those folks. They demonetize them. They get rid of them. They squelch them. They make it so that their message doesn't get out, but the messages they want to get out are amplified. Which you probably find it's highly ironic that I'm using YouTube. The interesting thing is the other platforms that are out there, Rumble, Odyssey, these other platforms are becoming more popular, and it's exactly because they're not censoring the content. They aren't telling you what you can and can't see. Rumble and Odyssey at the beginning of this year, as far as I'm aware, did not have Roku apps. In other words, you couldn't download their channel onto Roku. You just couldn't. It wasn't available. And now both Rumble and Odyssey have official apps that you can pull up and use. And there's a lot of content that you can find over on Rumble that you're not going to find on YouTube. I haven't decided whether I want to start posting my stuff. I'm actually small time enough, and there's certain attractiveness to being on YouTube because it's easy to use and everything else. And also, I'm not large enough, my voice has not been amplified enough to get the negative attention on YouTube. I have had several of my videos reported. I think I ended up with I've ended up with at least one strike on my profile. Or my account. I don't even know how that works. I don't know whether that's a permanent thing. You can tell how worried I am. If I get thrown off YouTube tomorrow, it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to be the end of the world. But what YouTube needs to understand is they are literally driving people to these other platforms. Google needs to understand this. Google, you own this. Google already manipulates search results. They use their algorithms and all that happiness. And they're censoring a lot of content. They only put out what they want you to see. If it doesn't fit the narrative that Google, it's sad that all these, you talk about how evil billionaires are. Well, look at the billionaires who are censoring you. And they're doing it in favor of a woke leftist agenda. And it's really sad when you've got people like Jackson Hinkle, a self-described patriotic socialist, calling out the wokeness, calling out the leftist agenda. I've been trying to tell people this for years, that the communists, who I despise, are more reasonable than the woke-tard leftist that we have in this country. The communists in Europe at least had certain boundaries that they tried not to step over. These folks on the left are fully unhinged. There is nothing. There is no boundary. There is no line that you just can't be crossed. All lines must be crossed as far as these people, and if you object to me crossing the line, then you are a problem. And platforms like Google, Facebook, all these other platforms that push this agenda, and they swear by it, they don't understand the damage they're doing to their own reputation. Facebook seems to be fairly impervious to competition, which I haven't figured out yet. Why? I guess it's because nobody else can come up with a platform that's as easy to use as YouTube. But let's face it, Rumble buffers a lot, Odyssey buffers a lot. For people who live in areas where the internet is accessed by satellite, it becomes a pain in the ass on certain days to watch it. But yet people are going there and they are watching. And you're going to see stuff over there that you're not going to find elsewhere. You have content providers already shying away from posting certain things to YouTube, but they will post to Rumble. And not all of it's stuff you want to see. I'll give you a perfectly good example out of morbid curiosity today. Graham Phillips had posted in Rumble. I have followed Graham Phillips' work on YouTube. I'm not what I would call a fanboy. I do like watching a lot of his content. There are pieces of his content that I don't necessarily agree with, and I can get over that. That's my deal. But once again, I don't have to agree with everything that everybody posts. He posted quite a ghoulish video of Ukraine, where a bunch of Ukrainian soldiers just a couple of weeks ago, outside of Bakhmut or Atomsk, if you go by the old name, were killed on the territory of a very large hog farm. And apparently there were a lot of requests made by the locals and by the forces in that area, which I believe were LPR forces, even though it's in DNR's area, for the Ukrainians to come get their dead out. And the Ukrainians have failed to do so. By failing to do so, it's a pig farm. And for a lot of you folks who don't understand, pigs will eat literally anything. And I won't go into graphic detail or content, but they pulled an ID out of a pile of where the pigs were eating, and it had a Ukrainian soldier's name on the ID, and they read it out. And, I find that to be, it's real. It's not to my taste of how you do things, but, people make points, and they're putting real news that's real. It may not be news you want to see, but all these other platforms are allowing people to post reality. They are allowing them to post things that are going on. They aren't sanitizing it. They aren't protecting you from information they don't want you to see. And this is going to be a large problem. Newspapers in this country, they have two strikes against them. Number one, they're old media. Number two, they're highly inaccurate. And people went to the internet looking for an alternative, something that was easier to access, something that was maybe not owned by giant corporations. And now we're to the day where those other platforms are by and large giant corporations. Google, Facebook, all these places, Twitter, all these giant entities, and they're now deciding what you can see. And so it's no wonder that the same sort of people who went to the internet seeking an alternative have not started to find the alternatives. And it's really where we are. It's amazing to me that people with so much to lose in this country, as these giant corporations, they think they're impervious, and they don't understand what they're doing. They are demolishing a lot of the old dynamics in this country. When you've got a socialist agreeing with me, an anti-socialist, you got problems. You got problems that you don't even come close to understanding. And the fact that these people are growing an audience, let me tell you what, when they get thrown off of YouTube, they take that audience with them. They may lose a percentage, but eventually it gets out. They're over on Rumble, they're on Odyssey, they're all these other places. Odyssey and Rumble carried RT that Google got rid of. That drug a lot of people, or dragged, or however you want to say it. My Southern twang showing up. They got a lot of people over to the Rumble and Odyssey platforms. Not because we believe everything that RT posts, not because we believe, but we want a little bit of balance. Interesting that people always cry about balance until you give them balance, and then suddenly it's balance they don't want. I just have really found it interesting here lately. And YouTube, for those of you who are aware of a lot of the things, there was a British mercenary, POW, he was a POW now, of the, I think, DPR forces, who was captured in Mariupol, a young fellow by the name of Aiden Aslan. Aiden fought on the side of the Ukrainians. He also was, he fought on the side of the Kurds in the Middle East. Aiden was captured. Aiden put up a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, where he talked about his experiences. Talked about how he really didn't want to sign on for another year, but the Ukrainians, who had promised him Ukrainian citizenship so he could live there with his fiance/wife, whatever her situation is, they reneged on getting him the citizenship that he was supposed to get on his initial contract. And he was basically told, you can either just leave the country or you can sign on and we'll get you your citizenship. Now this goes to just how corrupt and how full of shit the Ukrainians are, that they don't keep their promises. They renege on the promises with Russia. They've reneged on their promises with Donbass. They've reneged on the promises that they've made with the French, the Germans, and the Belarusians. And the fact that all this was coming out of his mouth, and it was all stuff that he had seen, but Google/YouTube didn't like it, they deleted his channel. And a lot of his, I saw a video today that came out through another YouTube channel of somebody else I follow, but I won't divulge it here in case the Google police are out there looking to totally cancel anything Aiden Aslan has to say. And I will tell you, honestly, I'm not a big fan of Aiden Aslan. I'm interested to see what he says, but I'm not sure whether he was a good guy who got caught up and in over his head, or whether he's just somebody who's saying what has to be said to save his own hide. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that. And I just thank God I'm not in his shoes, because that is not a direction I would want to be in with my life. So it's interesting to me the way that the woke-tards, the Bidens, the leftists, that they're all banking everything on what they've got going right now. It's all crumbling. When you get Fauci resigning, when I'm seeing a lot more people who've been vaccinated against the COVID getting COVID, and my unvaccinated ass isn't. It's really interesting to me. It's absolutely interesting to me. They've banked everything on this, and now they've went a bridge too far, several bridges too far if you ask me, and it's all crumbling. It's all crumbling. It's interesting also to see how the woke-tards and some right-wing folks are celebrating the death of Daria Duganina, Dugan's daughter. And why do they hate Dugan so much? Because Dugan is about three things. Three things, folks. Faith. Man's a devout Orthodox. Raised communist, devout Orthodox. He believes in faith, religion. And I realize that's not for everyone. I'm not sure it's for me. But I will tell you, most people, not all, you'll see the mega church religion folks that have never cracked a Bible. But people who are honest about faith and devoted to faith are usually better grounded people than a lot of other folks I meet. It is what it is. Now, you will run into occasionally deluded people. But his faith and orthodoxy was very important to him. I respect that. Second thing he was big on was family. Family. Traditional family. Husband, wife, children. And how family is the basic building block of society. If you don't have family, you don't have society. You don't have norms. You don't have rights. You don't have wrongs. And he believed in country. He believed that his country was important, and that faith and family were very important to his country. It was all interlocked. It was all three things together. And those are the things that Dugan respected. Dugan was a big proponent of. And all three of those things are things that leftists despise. And, we're always going to have some folks on the right who are pre-programmed to hate Russia for whatever reason. I still find it hypocritical. With veteran community, it's very interesting. I see it hitting about 50-50. 50% of the veterans who I've talked to call this shit out for what it is. We have no problem defending our country. We also respect when people are defending their country. These Russian soldiers in this fight in Ukraine, they're not farmers with AKs humping goats in the mountains of Afghanistan or abusing children in Afghanistan, our so-called Afghani allies. They're also not Iraqi terrorists on both sides. And I feel sorry. Today, watching the pigs eat dead Ukrainian soldiers on the Graham Phillips, it irritated me, because those guys were, some of them were believing what they were doing. Some of them were just conscripts that were thrown into line. And here they are feeding pigs. Half of the veterans in this country are saying, hey, wait a minute. We have went places and done things that were in our best interest. There is no reason that another country shouldn't be able to follow their best interest as long as it doesn't interfere with our best interest. Ukraine is not our best interest. It may be in the best interest of the government, who have children who work there and make big bucks because daddy's last name is Biden, or I got a relative named Pelosi, or a relative named Schumer that's in my family. That's the reason those folks have big paying jobs. And basically you're enriching the families of these political elites. That's not the way this is supposed to work. This is cronyism. And it's not crony capitalism, it's crony woke leftism for the majority. Although I tell you what, if you've got the name of a prominent Republican, and I don't particularly like Republicans right now, if you got a name of a prominent Republican whose child has a no-show job for a Ukrainian firm and is making lots of money for the family name in Ukraine, I would be very happy to hear who that is, so it can be broadcasted near and large, or near and far, because these people need to be shamed out of office. 110%. They might not be making money from campaigns here, which they are, but the fact that they have family of politicians getting money from foreign governments is a big issue. Anybody ever set a security clearance? One of the questions they ask you, are you getting any money, or anybody in your family getting money from a foreign government or a foreign country? And when you say yes, it becomes an issue. I can tell you for experience, because my children, being Russian citizens, got part of a program called Mother's Capital, which helps them with education costs and other things. I had to report that, because if I didn't report that, I could have very easily lost any of my clearances I've had. The problem with that is I also had to spend what everybody else spends, an hour to an hour and a half. I usually spent 3 hours in a clearance interview. So for me, it's very interesting that guys who want to be honest and take care of these problems have to jump through all the hoops. And the other folks who are the political elites, the hoops don't seem to matter to them. The rules don't seem to matter to them. The standards are different for them. For a country that was supposed to be done with a royalty class, we have political royalty in this country. Names Bush, Cheney, Pelosi. Those families aren't supposed to be any better than you or I, Clinton, Obama. Those families are not supposed to have any sort of special treatment. They're supposed to be the same as you and I, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Well, folks, I'm way over my time limit, so y'all take care, and I'll talk at you down the road.